A lot of you were quite opinionated and expressive about the Mission 4 video, and that was great. So I wanted to follow it up with something a little bit more personal, which is my take on Mission 2. Now, despite my extensive research looking at every corner I could find, nobody really talks about this mission. Not really the fault of anyone's, because I can understand why this mission isn't talked about. In the context of where it matters the most, which in that case is best suited for the running stages, it's so brief and easy to glance over that it doesn't really leave a lasting impact. So, exactly where do I stand with it? And more importantly, why? Well, firstly, it does not matter what corner of this game you go to, what variant of Mission 2 you choose to play, you will never, ever escape the 100 rings. The idea is always going to be straightforward, trying to find an optimal path that allows you to collect 100 rings as much as possible and gives you a good shot at an A rank. There is a purpose behind this sort of mission, beyond just playing it. When it comes to Adventure 2, nobody's going to be scoring A ranks left and right. It's not candy, it's not going to come to you easily. And even getting into the rhythm of trying to gain A ranks can be quite stressful and frustrating. Mission 2, however, is short, simple, and sweet. It teaches you the ropes of having to be reconnaissant of where enemy placements are so you can optimize your route as much as possible. A type of optimization that you would consider for every other mission except the Lost Chow. But the point is, it's so simple and straightforward that it marks a perfect place to really get into that A rank mindset, so when you've applied, which you've learned here, to other missions, you start to notice a few things are clicking a little more and your opportunities for those A ranks begin to increase. It's not substantial or anything, you won't be screwed if you don't play Mission 2, but the point I'm making here is that from the onset, it's so simple and straightforward that no harm can come from playing this mission, and what's more is you can adapt a few techniques into your actual play. Now, of course, Mission 2's quality will vary on the playstyle that you are currently associated with. That's to say, that's just because you have a blast of a time playing as Sonic and Shadow, that does not mean Tails and Eggman will necessarily warrant the same euphoria. On that topic, let's talk about how Mission 2 usually is experienced per gameplay style. Let's start with the mix. This right here is arguably the worst second mission in the game, at least in my eyes. Collecting 100 rings on Mission Street is genuinely horrible. This isn't even taking into account of the other mech stages, because this is it at its absolute worst, but there are still some criticisms here that are valid across all mech stages. It's just amplified here. The first gripe you'll immediately notice in your experience in any mech stage is that the enemy placements is not your friend. Never was, never will be. It's like modern day Nintendo. But I digress about that. The enemy placement is designed in a way that's meant to catch you off guard, and not in the way that it should be in the context of Sonic games. This version of enemy placement, you're either lucky while being blindsided and you narrowly miss out on getting hits, or you've played the stage so many times you've memorized it ahead of time. Otherwise, if you're even the slightest bit unlucky, you're taking a hit, you're losing your rings, and Mission 2 is going to be a total shit show. It is single-handedly the biggest reason why Mech 100 ring missions just don't really work well together, but that's not to say that the failure between each mech stage is created equally. Some mech stages don't have a failure of a Mission 2. If you take Iron Gate for example, that one's rather straightforward. Enemy placements are usually more fair there, you can anticipate stuff ahead of time, minus one section in the middle there, but it's in an open area so there's ways to traverse. There's a few considerations for Iron Gate that makes its 100 ring mission actually work out somewhat decently. It's not great by any means, but it's definitely manageable. Although, the subtle success of Iron Gate does not negate the fundamental flaws of what makes 100 rings and mechs just not pair up very well. Even if we did fix the enemy placement issues, which would definitely make these a lot better, overall the mechs just aren't really designed to work for Mission 2. And I don't like ragging on the mechs because for the most part I actually defend them to a small degree, but in this case, it's not good for this mission, usually isn't good for this mission. What could have made mechs better is actually something that Sonic Team does with Sonic to this day. Do you ever notice that in the more modern Sonic games when Sonic takes damage, he doesn't lose all his rings, he loses a partial amount? The mechs being able to absorb some of the damage that the character piloting would take would contextually make sense for them to lose partial rings rather than all their rings. The argument against this would be that the health bar already serves as a sponge, so having additional rings on top of that would just be sort of pointless. So my proposition to that would be, so just get rid of the health bar system and implement a partial ring system. Now it's effective for both your mission 1s, 4s, 5s, and 3s, and your 2s. Done. Fixed. For the treasure hunting stages, I actually offer a different case. I would argue, bold claim coming up, I would argue that mission 2 might be at its best in the hunting stages. Now, why would I say such an absurd thing, knowing full damn well that running stages are superior? Go running stages. What's different with hunting stages is that it's not as linear. You don't have an exact clear route that you need to take because there's multiple routes you can take. There's different orders you can take. You could have 5 sections and you could travel through all those 5 sections, but what makes it fun is that you can basically do it in any order. There is an element of exploration here. That's what makes these stages good in the first place, and Mission 2 capitalizes off of that. I always stand by the fact, though, that, again, Mission 2s are not created equally. It doesn't matter what gameplay style we're talking about here, even with the running stages. While we can admit that most of those are very good, they're not all one-to-one with each other. Hunting stages are no different. I don't really like the Mad Space version of this, which you'd question why I'm playing it here, but I guess diversity in my gameplay. But collecting 100 rings in the hunting stages just serves for a fun time. It's fun to learn and improve and constantly bring that time closer and closer to 0. Hell, it even gives Rouge's treasure scope and Knuckles' sunglasses a chance to shine because you can use those to your advantage. Now, some may argue that you shouldn't absolutely need an upgrade in order to get a high rank on a mission, but to be fair, those upgrades aren't too hard to acquire as it stands, so I don't know, it's not that big of a deal. The 100 ring mission with the hunting stages is lesser about doing what the game tells you and figuring out what to do with what the game's giving you as resources. You can chart the paths for yourself, you can find what works. It invokes a sense of curiosity, if you will. You will try new things, you will adapt new techniques, and 90% of those techniques may not work whatsoever. But now, after reverting to what obviously did work in the past, you have a new 10% that you can incorporate into your newfound route. And that's what makes it fun. It's because you acknowledge that not every run's going to be the same. And you have 1,000 different ways you can complete these missions, and it just makes it an interesting experience overall. Now, granted, it's true that Mission 2 is extremely limited because of its simplicity, so you won't be playing these all the time. But sometimes to deviate from the usual missions of Adventure 2, I think Mission 2 can be a fun time. And I think for the hunting stages, this really shines. Objectively speaking, again, I still argue that hunting is the best way to enjoy these missions. But that doesn't mean that running has slowed down in any way. Now, before we talk about the hedgehogs, of course, I'd like to actually give some appreciation to the route levels because this is the one thing that they actually did pretty well. The way that the 100 ring missions are handled here are pretty straightforward and a lot of fun. You get a boost every 20 rings, which you can use advantageously, and that's all I really have to say. It's just a decent mission here, and it's probably the highlight of the route stages altogether. But let's not make any mistake, Mission 2 is not good enough to compensate for the absolute slop that Mission 3 and 4 were for these stages. Oh my god. Now, for the most part, for the running stages, these missions are excellent. They're so naturally woven into the game that you don't really have to think about it. Just as long as you don't get hit by enemies and you know where the rings are, you can do this entire mission without thinking. But there is one problem with this. It's natural to the point that it is piss easy to complete these. On City Escape, you can get these missions done in a sub 40. Keep in mind you were spending the first half of that just boarding the stage. For me personally, that's just way too easy. The best, most compromising way I think that these missions could have been handled is if the mech stages had to collect 50 and the enemy placement was fixed a little bit, the treasure hunting stages would remain at 100 and the running stages 200. The running stages 200 is quite possible. It's pretty straightforward to get. A lot of people might say that 200's a bit too great of an amount. Honestly though, I don't see the issue with it. The running stages don't deal with a lot of unfair enemy placement, and besides, this is the preferred way to play the game. It's the most fun. So, I don't think anybody would necessarily complain. 100 rings, a little bit too easy for this, but it is still incredibly fun. In essence, the totality of Mission 2 is, for the most part, great. It fits the game to a T, because Sonic's all about those rings, right? So collecting 100 of them feels very natural for an extension of his game. Not to mention that it's very well made for both the hunting stages and the running stages, and the mech just needs some refinement and some toning down for it. Again, this is one of those cases where, in a very futile sense, I complain about a game that's almost 24 years old, but either way, I'm passionate enough to voice my concerns, and I hope that whatever I had to say resonated with you guys. With that in mind, though, I hope you have a wonderful day. Take care for now. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.